Hello. Uh, let's talk about passion. I think this is around the point in emotional sobriety when, on my path, I started to question what the role of passion would be in my life. Because part of the programming in my personal identity turbine was that I was a passionate, fearless, and energetic person. And so when I started to have more peace, more calm, more serenity, when I started to create less chaos, and I would say I conflated passion and chaos a lot. And it's pretty easy, I think, for the energy of passion to tip over into chaos if we don't have a little mastery of ourselves and our energy and our capacity to ground in our bodies. So when I started to feel more serene more of the time, I started to think maybe my worst fear when I decided to get physically sober from alcohol, my worst fear was that I would never write again, that I wouldn't be creative again, that I wouldn't be funny anymore, that I would be boring. Those were all my worst fears. And so when this calm came in, I thought, oh my God, that is coming true. Because I didn't yet trust that I needed that calm for real creativity to start to move through me. I was still caught in that identity turbine, in that place where I thought it was my ego's enacting desire on the world that was creativity and passion. My ego's desire to create chaos is what I mistook for passion. The more false fire, to use like a traditional Chinese medicine term, the more yang or masculine energy that I generated in order to enact my will on the world, the more passionate and fearless and confident I thought I was. But I was really just like a little hurricane of chaos. So when I got more grounded and more things started to just well up in me, and as I cleared my field of a lot of old trauma that was lodged in my body, a lot of old memories, a lot of the Sanskrit term is sankharas, like these little coagulated memories that turn into little almost energy cysts that are caught in our system. They're like kinks in our pipe to all that is, so that we should be a clean, clear pipe to all that is, and all of that should get to move through us all the time, ideally. But our conditioning and our genes and our stories and our culture and the socioeconomic world that we live in all make kinks in the pipe. So there's all these little dents where the energy kind of gets stuck. And in our actual bodies, like those cluster up. And so we can't actually be free. We're still, each of those dents is another rut in the identity turbine. Every time that turbine turns in the same patterns of who we think we are and the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves, that rut inside the identity turbine drives deeper and deeper and deeper. Like the idea that neurons that fire together wire together. So the more we think those thoughts and the more we tell ourselves those stories about ourselves, about how we feel about the world and other people, the more entrenched they get in our brains. So not just our minds, but our brains. We actually physically change ourselves with those thoughts. So when I lived in LA, I studied flamenco dancing for 7 years. And in flamenco, there's this concept, I guess, we should call it, it is more of a concept, called duende. And so when you go to a flamenco show, you'll hear people call out, ole, ole, right? And that comes from the time in southern Spain when it was, when the Moors were ruling it. And it became like an alteration of the word Allah for God. And people would shout Ale or Allah, Ale, they like evolved, because the dancer or the singer or the guitarist in flamenco, but usually the dancer had left the vessel open to God. And what they were seeing was no longer the dancer, but the dance. And one of the things that drew me to flamenco to begin with was the passion of my original teacher, her fearlessness, her duende. And she actually danced in this flamenco restaurant in Silver Lake in LA. In what you would think could be like this sort of cheesy version of flamenco, and she was just absolutely transcendent. And I was just so I have to study with this woman, and it was incredible. And what she had couldn't be taught. And I don't even think she realized the difference between teaching choreography and teaching people how to get the fuck out of their own way, which is what she had. She did not give a shit what you thought. That she ruled El Cid, that restaurant. She was the queen. She was the empress of that tiny stage. And it was her whole world. And she inhabited it as if Ole, as if God were coming through her. And I'm not always super comfortable using that word to describe just that those masses of energy, that massive energy that can just move through you and should. But she danced like that, like a person who knew how to get the fuck out of her own way. And so when I talk about passion as I see it now, it's absent of pulling on anything. Like sometimes if we think of passion in a romantic context, we think of it as like, oh, I feel so passionately about this person. There's such passion here. And how much of that is pulling on and pulling another person into a field of chaos? And what is the relationship of that to love? It might have a big relationship to desire. As I talked about in the intimacy video, desire requires a gap. Desire requires an empty space to bridge. Passion doesn't require you to pull anyone else into your field. Passion, when held, is radiance. And it's not your radiance. It's not something that you can even generate. Like that was the hard lesson for me to learn. I thought I could generate all this energy, all this energy, all this energy. All I was generating was more ego, more chaos, more arrogance, more selfishness, all of that stuff. But it felt so enlivening. It was this really powerful, toxic mimic of aliveness. If intimacy is an openness to interpenetration. Passion is passion is a swelling of energy that moves you, that animates you and activates you toward something. And if you can't hold that, if you don't know how to ground back into that home space and understand that this is something that's moving through you and it feels amazing and it's not yours to cling to or resist, but it's yours to just keep opening to and allowing it to reveal the next right thing. If you can't do that, the higher frequency of that passion, the tippy top of it, will tip you right over into ego. And this is something that I still have to really watch out for. Because like when you just get so full, you're filled up. So where is there left for it to go? It spills over and you start leaking energy all over the place, all over people that don't want it, all over everywhere. You make a big sloppy mess. I was at this long retreat in January at a Zen center, and I was doing just that, and I got called out by this magnificent Buddhist teacher who is about as hardcore and fabulous as they come. And when I was in an interview with her, she was like, well, basically explained to me that what I was doing was simply leaking energy all over the place. And my response was, well, that's fine. I don't care if I leak it all over the place. I'll just make more. I'm like an endless fountain of energy. And she was like, but that's, in so many words, she was like, that's not your business to disrupt everyone else's practice with your fucking fountain. It's not you. You're not here to be the lawn sprinkler all over the Zendo. And that was very hard to hear, because in a way, like for me, what I love about Zen practice is its compression and its restriction and its rigor. It is the giant, powerful, masculine container that I've always wanted. And it allowed me to open into the feminine in a way that I never felt held enough to do before in my life. Zen held me, and taught me devotion. Much like the way that the singer and the guitarist and the rhythms hold you when you dance flamenco. And I know those two things might seem so different, flamenco and Zen. But energetically, those two practices have operated on me in the same way. And what I want to try to get across to you is how restriction can actually amplify the blossoming of passion. And your physical mastery over your capacity for surrender, but surrender without leaking energy. That same Buddhist teacher that I sat across from, when I walked into that room and sat across from her, she felt like a talc mountain. You know, like talc is the softest of all the stones. So she was solid and broad-based and still had a softness to her. And I had never been in someone's presence before that felt like that. And I'd certainly never been in a woman's presence before who felt like that. That there was still this softness to her and this penetrability, and also this incredible stability. And I was like, oh my God, I want what she's got. And a little bit into the interview, she looked at me and she said, I think after I was talking about this, like, it's okay if I leak energy, I'll just get more. It's constant. And she had kind of talked me into a silence, so I was all contained there for a second. For a second. And she just looked at me and she said, I have confidence. And I had to take that in because I thought I did. So, what is this demonstration about? Because with her, it was never about the words, it was absolutely the words. The words were the frosting on a transmission cake, if that makes sense. The words were just the top accessible layer to kind of draw you in, but it was really the transmission of her presence, her energy, her field. That was the real teaching. So she said, I have confidence. And I sat there for a while, and then I said, in what? And then she just went back to silence, and I forget what I said after that, but probably some more babbling thing. Which I did a lot until I had to clean toilets for a month and work in the kitchen. And then I learned I learned devotion so deeply from cleaning those toilets that on the last day that I cleaned those toilets, I wept sincerely with gratitude for the way those toilets taught me devotion and the power of containment. And conversely, that containment and that capacity for devotion actually increased the amount of energy my system can hold. My nervous system, on a very physical level, went up every week that I was there. So for 4 weeks, I just had this incredible increase in capacity for like how much could run through me, how much I could notice, how much I could hold, how much I could metabolize in my system without leaking it all over the place, without uh, wielding it in ways that were simply to relieve me of my discomfort of having that much energy or calling it anxiety. I didn't have to call it anxiety after a while. I was able to just learn how to hold it and just be like, oh, there's a surge. Oh, where is that moving in me? How is that moving in me? What is that song? What is that song of all that is mine to find the structure for or the words for? How is it mine to sing? How can my passion be expressed towards service? And not just, do you remember those? I don't know if some of you know, like there was this lawn sprinkler, like that was like for kids to play in the 80s. It was like called Willy Waterbug, I think. I think that was his name, Willy Waterbug, and it was like a sprinkler, but it had like a cute little bug face on it, and it had like all these sort of skinny hoses coming out of his head. So when you put the water pressure, would make the hoses kind of go all over the place, and it would like squirt everywhere, and it was fun to jump over and jump through on a hot summer day. Well, I was kind of like that going in, going into that Zen retreat, full of what I thought was passion and energy and enthusiasm. And I can't wait to sit still for a month and see what happens in this devoted, masculine, Asian, restrictive, beautiful, elegant, dignified container. I went to, to Zen because it was everything that I was not. Like the first day I happened into a 1 day Zen sit, I was like, oh, this is absolutely not for me. And that, as I sat with it, was why I knew I had to go back. And in flamenco, you have the compás. So each sort of little genre of flamenco has its own rhythm, right? So in bulerías, you have like this 12 count rhythm, like, oh God, I forget it now. And so everything stems from that. That's the structure. That's the restriction. And from that spine, from each beat of that rhythm is like a vertebra down that spinal cord of that particular form. And by being absolutely strict with that, by the guitarist, the singer, and the dancer all being absolutely constricted by that, that's how you open it up for Ole, for Allah, for all that is to come through, by being completely in sync. The three players in flamenco are the singer, dancer, and guitarist. And so for all three of those to leave themselves, to clear their own bullshit so completely and to surrender entirely to the compás. That's what opens the portal. That's what allows passion to come through. And I think passion is very much related to eros, which is why we get those things conflated in a romantic relationship, that pulling and that egoic amplification of energy. There's a very, very big difference between an egoic amplification of energy that's like, I'm pulling on this, I'm pushing that away, I'm putting this energy into this, so it better pay off because that's where I'm putting my energy, as if energy is a limited resource. It's not. If you limit it. If you limit it, it will be limited. If you get out of the way, it will be limitless. You have the capacity, you have the birthright, and frankly, the responsibility to be a self-replenishing well. And if you can allow that, then you can be of service. You can figure out what you serve. Myself, I serve freedom. I've served freedom my whole life. I've chased freedom down every self-destructive rabbit hole there is. I've let freedom be a manifestation of my ego in a million different ways. Freedom can be an expression of fear when it's still in the ego. Freedom can be an expression of ego everywhere we look. We see that a lot in this country right now. What a lot of people are like, these are my freedoms. You can't take away my freedoms. Well, actually, what you're talking about in this context are your egoic preferences. Those have nothing to do with freedom. They are your reiteration of your own imprisonment and have absolutely no relationship to freedom. If you still think that freedom is wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, you are very much in your way. And you have very little understanding of what freedom really is. Freedom is your capacity to be with exactly what is, with the humility to understand that you only ever see a tiny, tiny slice. So when you start to well up with that passion and think that you know how it should be wielded and that your ego is going to wield that, you'll just start, it'll be like that red wedding. That was one of the only episodes I saw in Game of Thrones. It'll be like the red wedding. If all of your passion and energy are being wielded by your ego, you're gonna have red weddings all over the place. Ole. Let all that is come through. That's sincere eros. That's sincere passion. That's clean passion. Clean passion. Non-toxic passion. Passionate service. That's letting the dance dance you instead of you laboring to dance the dance. My favorite flamenco performer that I ever saw was Eva Bueno. And I saw her at this flamenco festival in Albuquerque, God, ages ago now. Don't even remember when it was, a long time ago. And that was when I saw what duende was. She is this dancer who's kind of stocky and sort of short and not what you would think of when you think of like a ballet dance or anything like that. Not at all. Quite the opposite. And when she danced, she truly disappeared. You didn't even see the dance. You saw the heart of the compás. You saw the spirit of that rhythm. You could almost like see and you could feel how the whole lineage of that rhythm, how it went through the Roma people, through Egypt and India and all over the world as they carried it to Europe. You could feel the whole world open in her movement. And she was this, if you ran into her at the supermarket or something, you wouldn't ever have a clue. And to me, that she was such a spiritual teacher for me. What she demonstrated was, for my practice, every bit as powerful as this incredible Buddhist teacher sitting across from me as a talc mountain telling me she had confidence. Whatever they said or did was not something that they said or did. In both of those circumstances, with both of those women, it was the way they removed themselves from the situation. It was the utter dismantling and erasure of their identity turbines, their need to be reiterated in their identity in any way, to be thought good, to be thought wise, to be thought skinny, to be thought young, to be thought anything of. There was no need for them to be thought of at all in that situation. In the case of Eva Buena, she was completely in service to the dance, completely surrendered to the compás, completely given over to that rhythm. And in the case of the Zen Roshi, she was just completely given over to everything. She was both utterly present and utterly dissolved at the same time. It was an amazing thing to be across from. And that's passion. That's an incredible amount of energy that is wielded with total mastery. When passion manifests itself that way in the world, we call it genius. Because what is the root of that word genius? It's the genie that comes through you. It's the genie in the bottle, and you're the bottle. You're just the bottle. You're just the bottle. Rub it and hope for the best. You're just showing up. The bottle just lands somewhere. It's really the genie's job to pop out. And what does that genie move you toward? Well, in some very fundamental ways, that's none of your business. Your business is to be so grounded in your body that you can feel that genie take your hand and walk you in the correct direction. That you trust that genie so much. Eva Yerba Buena has been studying flamenco since she was a small girl. The compás is in her bones. She doesn't, for generations. A lot of those flamenco families, they've been doing that for generations. They come out of the womb keeping compás. So there is no need for thought. There's no need for control. It's not an external thing. It's as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. So as we open, as we dismantle more of that identity turbine and stay grounded enough in our bodies to hear the whir of it, to feel the difference between what comes through us when we are soft and grounded and breathing into our feet, to know the tone of that energy, almost like a note in a scale, to know that tone versus the higher pitched squeal of the identity turbine. When we can feel that, we can know when we're manufacturing passion, which is usually just another word for chaos, or when we are allowing life force to move through us like a little genie popping out of our bottle. And it's very hard for me to explain this to you in any other way because it's totally a felt sensation. I can't give you a checklist. It's a matter of just staying completely grounded. It's a matter of not letting your hair get tangled up in that identity turbine, which is a really hard thing to do because everything coming from outside is keeping you up here. It's like keeping you up here. It's selling you an idea of passion that's related to, like, oh, passion is in this perfume. Passion is in this sports car. Passion is what you feel for this sports team. Commodified passion is not passion. It's just a commodity. The energy that gets that rises up in you in the presence of those things does not belong to those external things. It comes from within. Like Ava Buena could not dance the way she danced that night that I saw her if the compas, if the call was outside of her. It's only because it was so completely integrated to who she was as a person that she could let all that go. She could let mind go. She could let body go, all of that, and yet be so completely embodied. Remove the ego and you become even more embodied, because that body is like, the energy can just use your body. I know that sounds, I hear how that sounds. That's fine. But we've all had that feeling. We've all been in that flow at different points in our lives doing different things. And I'm not talking about, like, flow is not when you get in the car and you drive somewhere and then 20 minutes later you have no idea how you got there. That's usually like you've been watching a movie in your head, you've been either future fucking or nostalgia bathing in your mind for the last 20 minutes. That's not flow in the sense that I'm talking about it. Like, that's just you taking yourself on a ride so far out of your body that you didn't even know, like, your body was like, okay, well, I guess you're gone. I got this. Don't worry. I got this. What I'm talking about is fully embodied flow. That's what I'm always talking about. Fully embodied flow. Breathe into your feet. Dorothy was not given a ruby beret. She was given ruby slippers. Your mind is reiterating your identity turbine, and our work here is to dismantle it. And I know that's scary. It's especially scary to examine the things that you feel like you're passionate about, right? It was very scary for me to dismantle the things that I felt like I was passionate about, because they were things that generated a lot of energy. So all that energy that was generated by the things I felt I was passionate about was energy that went back into that identity turbine and then came back out of that energy generating identity turbine. So I'm putting it in. Yes, this is who I am. This is what I'm passionate about. And it just fueled that engine. And then that energy came right back out into me. It's like, yeah, that's who I am. That's who I am. And to stop that and to be in the absence of all that, to be fully embodied in that absence, is fucking unnerving at first. It's fucking unnerving. Who will I be? And to understand that not knowing is most intimate, and that intimacy of not knowing is tender and loving. And if you can be gentle with yourself in that deep intimacy of not knowing, it will be revealed to you in beautiful ways. And God, I know that sounds so magical, kookaburra. I get it. I really do. And you just have to trust. There is no substitute for trusting who you will be on the other side of that Rubicon. Who will show up on that other shore? Who will not show up on that other shore? Who doesn't even need to show up on that other shore? Eros, life force, passion, God. These are all different ways of saying the same thing. Isn't it? It's called the Passion of the Christ. Yes. And when I talk about the Eros circuit, right, that you have mind, heart, and genitals. I do hate that word, but I'm getting used to it. I don't want to go to Facebook jail. When mind, heart, and genitals are all lit up, then that power center of the solar plexus takes care of itself because you have that deep welling up from the root of the genitals. So any blockage that you kind of have there in that solar plexus, if you fully allow all that energy from your genitals to bubble up, you'll have a good chance of obliterating that. And then the next difficult spot is that heart center. And then if that opens up, oh, then that can permeate in all the directions. There's this heart math study. I remember reading this book such a long time ago. I think it was called like The Biology of Consciousness. It was put out by the Heart Math Institute, and I learned that the heart, the electromagnetic field of the heart, has a 3-foot field in a torus shape. Like a torus is like a donut shape. So all around you, there's this like circulating love donut that's like a one of the like a life preserver sort of around up under your armpits circulating. Then if that's going, and then that has that lovely round rolling motion that can go up into your mind, and instead of being up here at this high frequency of anxiety where you're like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? The future looks grim, I'm gonna get COVID and die, I'm not gonna have any money, I'm never gonna own a house, my dog is really sick, oh my god, what am I gonna do? Okay, that feels terrible up there. Bring it down and put it back in that heart field and let it circulate there. Let it go down the genitals, circulate. A fountain coming up from the genitals back into the heart, circulating back up into the head in a soft, lovely way that comes back down into the heart and then goes back down under and then can come up like a fountain from those genitals. And you have this lovely circulating system, which is a helpful, if you can't feel that subtle motion, it's still really useful as a visualization that there is this whole system running around you all the time. If you can use that as like a visualization for meditation, it's helpful just as that. So that in your stillness, in your groundedness, in your breathing into your feet, you can still visualize this field that's working you. That you don't have to make so much effort. You don't have to push. You don't have to use force. You can actually allow that power and that passion, that beautiful eros, to come through you. Just don't block it. Just don't block it with fear or nostalgia or craving or revulsion or any of that stuff. No contempt. no contempt for the energy that wants to come through you. You can disbelieve it at your peril. But if you do, if you choose to disbelieve that using force is not power, I think it's good to sit with why you need to hold that belief. How is that benefiting you? And what parts of you is it benefiting? And how tied to it is your identity as a certain kind of person? I'm a rational person. I'm a logical person. I'm a pragmatic person. I'm a humble person. I don't deserve all that energy coming through me. I don't. Do you see what I'm saying? What part of you would like to be limited? And how does remaining limited keep you from taking full responsibility for who you are becoming if you just got out of your own way? Because if you really do get out of your own way and you do dance like Eva la Yerba Buena, how will you respond if the crowd shouts Olay? Will you be able to handle that? Will you be able to say, "Oh, I can see why you see God coming through me. I own that." Sure, the genie's out of the bottle. Would you take responsibility for your genie? And if not, why not? Would that be too woo? Would that be too impractical? Would you have to be stupid to believe that? Would you be dumb? But again, going back to the 12-step thing of really, why have contempt prior to investigation? How does that serve you? It does not make you smarter. It does not make you smarter. Say it one more time. Contempt prior to investigation does not make you smarter. But it certainly can bring you a considerable amount of extra suffering. Thank you for joining me this evening. It's been a delight as always. Have a good night.